The crimson sun of Draconis Prime hung low over the obsidian cliffs, casting long shadows across the volcanic terrain. Tobin Reese adjusted his environmental suit's temperature regulators and wiped the condensation from his helmet's visor. 3 months of surveying this god-forsaken planet, and he'd found nothing but rocks, sulfur vents, and disappointment. Then he heard the voices. At first, Tobin thought his comm system was malfunctioning. The translator implant in his skull couldn't possibly be working correctly. But no, there they were again. High-pitched chirping sounds that his neural interface was converting into perfectly understandable standard. "I'm so hungry," one voice whined. "Mother said she'd bring food soon," another replied, slightly deeper but still juvenile. "But what if she doesn't? What if she forgot about us?" Tobin crept forward, his boots crunching softly on the volcanic glass. He rounded a massive boulder and froze. In a natural hollow carved into the cliff face, 3 creatures huddled together. They were roughly the size of ponies, covered in iridescent scales that shimmered between purple and midnight blue. Membranous wings folded against their backs, and small wisps of smoke curled from their nostrils with each breath. Dragons. He was looking at actual dragons. His hand instinctively moved to his sidearm, but he stopped himself. They were babies. Hatchlings, probably, and they hadn't noticed him yet, too absorbed in their own conversation. "Do you think," the smallest one said, its voice trembling with what might have been excitement or fear, "that we could eat something else? Something that's not what Mother brings?" "Like what?" the middle one asked skeptically. Like... The smallest dragon's head swiveled, and its eyes, brilliant gold with vertical slits, locked onto Tobin. Every muscle in Tobin's body tensed. The translator in his head went silent as the dragon stared at him, their conversation abruptly cut off. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant rumble of volcanic activity and Tobin's own hammering heartbeat. Then the largest of the 3 hatchlings tilted its head and spoke directly to him. "Are you food?" "Definitely not food," Tobin said quickly, his hands raised in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I'm a person, sapient, intelligent. We don't eat each other where I come from." The 3 dragons exchanged glances, a ripple of communication passing between them that his translator couldn't quite catch. The middle one stepped forward, claws clicking on stone. "You smell strange," it observed. "Not like the rock crawlers or the flame deer." "That's because I'm human," Tobin explained, trying to keep his voice calm and measured. "I'm from off-world, not from this planet." "Off-world?" The smallest dragon's eyes widened. "Like, from the sky?" "From beyond the sky, actually. From the stars." This seemed to fascinate them. All 3 hatchlings moved closer, their earlier hunger apparently forgotten in the face of curiosity. Tobin found himself relaxing slightly. They were just children, really. Dangerous children with claws and teeth and the ability to breathe fire, but children nonetheless. "Are there others like you?" the largest asked. "In the stars?" "Billions," Tobin said. "Humans have spread across hundreds of worlds. We explore, we learn, we can eat your leftovers." The smallest dragon suddenly blurted out, its tail wagging like an excited puppy. "If you have food from the stars and you don't want all of it, we could eat the parts you don't finish." The other 2 hatchlings chirped in agreement, their scales brightening with enthusiasm. Tobin couldn't help but smile at their innocence. They weren't threatening him. They were begging, like stray dogs hoping for scraps. "I don't know if my ration bars would agree with your digestive system," he began, reaching for his supply pack, "but I suppose we could." The ground shook. It wasn't the familiar tremor of volcanic activity. This was rhythmic, purposeful. The sound of something massive moving with deliberate intent. The hatchlings immediately fell silent, their heads snapping toward the entrance of the hollow. Tobin turned slowly, his blood running cold despite the planet's oppressive heat. She filled the entrance completely. Where the hatchlings were the size of ponies, she was the size of a cargo hauler. Scales of deepest crimson covered her body, each one larger than Tobin's helmet. Her wings, partially folded, still scraped against the cliff walls. Smoke poured from her nostrils in thick streams, and her eyes, the same gold as her children's, but infinitely older and more intelligent, fixed on Tobin with an intensity that made him feel like an insect under a microscope. Valra had arrived. The dragon mother's lips pulled back, revealing teeth the length of Tobin's forearm. A low rumble emanated from deep within her chest, a sound that Tobin felt in his bones more than heard with his ears. His translator struggled to process it, finally settling on something that might have been words or might have been a warning growl. "You are near my children." Tobin's mouth went dry. Every survival instinct screamed at him to run, but he knew with absolute certainty that running would be the last thing he ever did. Vylra could cross the distance between them faster than he could blink. Fire would melt his suit before he took 3 steps. There was nowhere to go, nothing to do. Except perhaps be honest. "Your children," Tobin said, his voice surprisingly steady, "were hungry. They asked if they could eat my leftovers. I was about to share my food with them." Vylra's head lowered until her snout was mere inches from Tobin's helmet. He could feel the heat radiating from her, see his own terrified reflection in her golden eyes. The hatchlings huddled together behind him, silent and still. "You would feed my young?" The rumble in her voice shifted, became something less threatening. Curious, perhaps, and why? "Because they were hungry," Tobin said simply. "And because where I come from, we help children when we can. Even if they're not our own species." The moment stretched. Vylra studied him with an intelligence that was unmistakably sapient, unmistakably weighing and measuring everything about him. Tobin had encountered dozens of alien species in his career, but none had ever made him feel quite so small and fragile. Then, impossibly, Vylra stepped back. The rumbling in her chest changed tone again, and Tobin's translator rendered it as something that might have been laughter. "A human," she said, the word carrying a weight of recognition that surprised him. "We have heard of your kind, the small ones who refuse to break, who show kindness to species that could destroy them." She lowered herself onto her haunches, still massive but no longer actively threatening. "Share your food with my children, small human. And perhaps we shall share stories of the stars." Tobin's knees nearly buckled with relief. As the hatchlings rushed forward, chirping excitedly about the promised food, he couldn't help but laugh. 3 months of surveying and he'd finally found something worthwhile. First contact with dragons. Humanity would never believe it. But then again, humans had a habit of doing the impossible.